Welcome everyone, Alan and Kevin, your hosts here for another episode of You're Not Ready for This. This week, we will delve into the world of martial arts. Fake, real, who knows?
Who knows? I like talking about martial arts. Is always fun. It's always a fun topic. So I'm looking forward to this. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but that's the whole point.
Talking about martial arts, and it's gonna sound like that's like a textbook definition or something, but what comes to your mind when you think about martial arts, self-defense, and fighting?
So, I mean, I did study Ishinryu karate when I was younger. I don't claim to be a martial artist by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh.
It was when I was younger. I did it more. My parents put me in the school because I wasn't a very tall person. They were afraid I was going to get bullied. So it was for self-defense reasons. And so from everything that I was taught during my sessions as a youngster in karate was that it is only for self-defense. It's not for fighting. It's for defending yourself, and it's for discipline. So it helps you basically be more disciplined with yourself, with your body, and it helps feel more confident for protecting yourself if you ever engage in or you end up getting engaged in a confrontation. And even though we were studying karate and whatnot, the instructors, my masters, has always told me that fighting is still always the last resort. If you can avoid fighting, then do it. Because that it should be only considered a last resort.
Yeah, you don't need to stick around. I mean, for fighting, there needs to be two persons engaged or more. But if you're not there, obviously there's no fighting going on.
Correct. Yeah, no, exactly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not able to defend yourself, and that's really the point that it comes down to. Is if you do get physically threatened or assaulted, and you have no choice, at least you have some of that confidence and some of that training to be able to handle yourself in a case of that situation.
That pretty much lines up with much of what my father told me growing up, and I have multiple friends that actually practice like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and other ways of martial arts or self-defense, if you want to call it. And I guess we'll delve a bit more into those definitions in a bit. But they obviously always told, if you can avoid the engagement, do so. If you can run. If you can kick someone in the balls and go away or, make a escape for it, that's better than fighting someone that might be armed or multiple individuals at the same time.
Sure.
Because it has been, I guess, ingrained in the mind of some people, and there's a misconception that because you practice martial art, you can go to the streets and basically do a Jackie Chan or all of these things that you can see in movies. He's fighting multiple individuals and able to come across pretty much unscathed, obviously with a few bruises, but in the real world, that's not what happens. And I started off the conversation with talking about street concept because funny enough, there's a podcast called The Practical Applications of Karate by Ian Abernathy, and I may be butchering his last name. And there's through the episodes and basically a summary of it. I haven't sat down and kind of listened to all of his podcasts because I got quite a few. He kind of delves into that concept, how some of them, he actually doesn't call self-defense, he calls it something else. But in practicality, that's what he's referring to, and he does a sort of a diagram on how those concepts interconnect between another. And you can see things that, for example, when you talk about martial arts, there is some, for example, traditions, the gear that you use, the respect, the how you behave yourself about it, that can be seen as a social activity and might have other implications that is just not kicking or striking someone or grappling someone. And going into the concept of self-defense is more so you being aware of your surroundings and being able to identify situation that you will be in danger. For example, you going on an alleyway in a part of town that has a reputation for being dangerous. That's you not practicing self-defense because you already expose yourself in a position that it's highly possible that you have to engage in a confrontation with maybe other individuals or put yourself in danger. And
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I do think though that there's a that you want to be careful of not getting into that crossing that line of blaming the victim, where like, oh, that so and so put themselves in that situation, so they deserved it, kind of thing.
Oh no,
But
no.
you're also 100% right, where you should know to not put yourself into certain situations. Of course, if you do end up in that situation, that doesn't necessarily mean that the other person, wasn't really the one that was wrong. Anyways, sorry.
No, and you're perfectly right, because in the nuance of the conversation, it can devolve very quickly in different schools of thought. Obviously, the aggressor is at fault because why are you attacking someone? But also the person that quote unquote put themselves in that position. Obviously, it can be very polarizing, but at the same time, hey, for a fact that there is a particular street in your neighborhood or in the middle of the city that has a reputation for things happening, either mugging or people getting knifed or something. You would think, let me not go there at, say, late hours of the day where there's less people walking about, or is there an alternative route? Is it really worth it, maybe saving a few minutes going through a certain part of town to do so? But that's where then the fighting concept comes into play. And obviously, this is something that I've been in a rabbit hole quite recently, so I don't have a full grasp of all the concept. But basically, fighting, obviously, how you engage, just obviously more so in the mentality of what you're doing when you're really in the situation that you're engaging with someone else. And that's where I guess the martial art has been very popular as a general concept of tying both the fighting and the self-defense as a whole, because there are systemized ways of teachings of how you apply body movements and how you engage with another person that is fully aggressive and fully resisting whatever you're doing. And here's the concept of why we're talking maybe about fakes in martial arts, because it has been something since the 1970s or even before, that people have gotten to the point of opening dojos or saying that they're the masters of self-taught martial art. And because people are very feeble to the idea that I want to be able to defend myself, and this person is teaching me something in a way that might be appealing, or how they call it, it's like a vice. That you're predisposed to being allured to these things that they show you. You can knock out someone without touching them, like with a key blast, or being able to with a single hand movement, and it's the touch of death or something that sounds very fancy. And I kind of wanted to bring it to attention because it's always a topic of conversation. Rather, it's been popular, I guess, is something that's always going on within the fighting community. And I myself, I'm not a practitioner of it, but I've been looking into maybe getting in some sort of practice of some martial art, more sort of a fitness, and like you perfectly described with your anecdote, like something more of self-discipline, building characters of confidence, and also a social activity that doesn't hurt anyone at all. And it's just that, like, when people think of martial arts, it has become more popular, I guess, in recent times, especially with MMA, with those that don't know mixed martial arts, and all the competitions and what all the nuances, like, well, there's a particular way of fighting that striking is more effective against someone, but if someone is not good at takedowns or grappling or mounting or trapping, and all the concepts when you're seeing a competition, it's like you gotta be very well-rounded to be able to engage, I guess, properly on those. And when you start seeing people teaching, I guess the first example that I can bring, and that might be the most used example that I found so far. Have you by any chance heard of Count Dante?
I have heard of Count Dante. Yes, I have. Both prior to this podcast and also a little bit some of the research that I done when you asked if you wanted to talk a little bit about martial arts. So yes, I have heard of Count Dante, and yeah, a very interesting story.
And it's funny enough because this is super on a tangent, but my uncle, maybe if I mentioned one or two times in previous podcasts, my uncle used to buy me comic books when I was younger, and he had a collection prior of comic books of his own when he was growing up. And funny enough, in some of those comic books, there's advertisements for Count Dante. And I had completely forgotten about it because when I was reading the comic books, it's like, I'm from Puerto Rico and seeing those advertisements, it's like, well, that's something that I guess they do in the States, but whatever, I'm here seeing Superman punch some guy or whatever. When I was doing the research, he's the creator of the Dim Mac or the Touch of Death.
Yes.
And it's basically responsible for for those that don't know, the Dojo Wars that happened in Chicago, close to the 1970s.
It was 1970, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so basically they would go to other dojos and exhort like aggressions, and actually there were shootings, there were bombings,
yeah,
there were that kind of an environment. Basically, they were a gang that had a label of them that they were able to do some martial arts. He claimed that he could catch bullets from a gun, and all.
Oh, he can catch them, all right.
Well, I mean, everyone can catch bullets, I guess. But he wanted to specify. He wanted to catch them with his hands, you know.
Oh, well, you could do that as well. Holding on to them might be a little bit of a different story.
Dude, and me seeing how people like this have existed since back then. Most likely there's even people older than him that have done it, but maybe they didn't use their medium to publicize themselves, or maybe use the advertisement like they did it with the comic books, because obviously you're targeting the minds of people that obviously believe in superheroes and all of this fantastical stuff. And you mean to tell me that if I pay someone, they teach me I can just touch someone and make them fall back and I don't have to do anything? And that's where you start to realize that people don't apply like critical thinking or exercise a degree of like, wait, are you really like being more what would be the word? I guess cynical about what's going on, because you cannot simply expect that someone that is going with all their might with intent to hurt you, that you by just touching them. I mean, there are points and joints in your body that are most susceptible, something that my father, for example, taught me, and still to this day I remember. You know that part of your throat when you're going down your Adam's apple or whatever you want to call it, and that hole in between your not shoulder blades, how do you call the collarbones, and there's like a indentation there that is concave. If you apply a very little pressure there, that stings. If you apply a lot of pressure, it hurts, and if you do it with a lot of force, it can definitely, incapacitate someone. And that's an example of many places that the body obviously has like points that someone can incapacitate you, like for example the nose or other things. And I guess I don't
temples.
The temples, the when you clap the ears of someone, their eardrums are gonna pop and all that. Like, obviously, don't want to get too much into that sort of conversation, but
the human body is fragile, right? So.
Yeah. So by that extension, I don't know whether I don't know if you think that might be the case, that people by having like things like that because if you do something like this, imagine if someone told you to do it even worse, maybe that's possible, and maybe people are more gullible to fall into those practices.
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, let's be honest, snake oil salesmen have been around for since the dawn of time, of basically selling, say, hey, I have this miracle cure for all diseases, and all you have to do is purchase this liquid from me and drink it, and you'll be all good to go. And people will buy into that. It's just a different form of it. And you can see it up into with today's grifters. It crosses all different various types of products or thought processes. It's a shame, but I think and let's be honest, it wouldn't work. Or they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. So obviously it works, right? So yeah, it
wouldn't be something along the lines that testimonials, that way there's a lot of testimonials in commercials and other advertisements, like,
sure.
Oh, I heard that it worked for someone and someone tried it and they're so convinced, they're self-suggested that this must work, that it gets to the point that, oh yeah, if you apply the oil to your skin or the affected area, it's going to start healing because it has that quote unquote placebo effect.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
the placebo effect is actually quite strong.
Yeah, and I guess you could apply the same to some of these martial arts because some people, and I guess that would be my next example. And I don't know if you have any other example. Also, when we were talking about the conversation prior, that people self-suggest themselves, and by doing so, that's why you see videos of people being pushed like they were doing like a air wave and they're pushed back like a few feet, and you see a guy, and not to disrespect in any manner, but you see someone that is actually not fit. I guess that's the word that I can use.
Yes.
Someone that is not fit in the middle of a classroom surrounded by students in geese and all properly standing, and you see them and they're either, well, they work out, they're properly, dressed and all that, and you see this guy like wave his hand like very little, like not touching them, and they start falling and they make a spin like they do in the Power Rangers, like
Yeah. I like it when they show those videos and they put like a fireball.
Okay.
When they put the gift, and they put so those always crack me up because obviously it's bullshit, and that it's either staged, or if the person is truly believing it, they're probably not all there. But when it makes me laugh so much when they throw, like, you see the fireball from Street Fighter or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard of Q. Again, I might be butchering all of these names. Kyusho Jitsu. Kyusho Jitsu.
No, that does not. I don't think that rings a bell.
It's the no touch knockdown, and that's by by his founder George Dillman. Have you heard of him?
No.
Apparently he was a boxer, and and there's even pictures of him with Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee. Though the one with Bruce Lee is like questionable. He even went on a National Geographic interview because he was the precursor of the no-touch knockdown, and it's precisely that example that I was describing. Like, he pushing people with his palm, and he could knock them down, and it's like, if you're a believer, obviously it affects you. And it just so happened that the people coming from the National Geographic, obviously they were skeptics, and they were not affected by his technique. It results that at the end of the interview, he starts saying, well, if you twist your tongue or you move your tongues up and down, like twist one up and the other down, and then flick them, the technique doesn't affect you. And it's like, I don't know if I should be saying this. And it's like, how can people really not rationalize like what you're applying? It might be, I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, and they're more so practicing a social activity. If they were to promote it as that, I really wouldn't have like criticism of it. But if you're promoting something as a self-defense, like a martial arts that is used for fighting, I don't see how you're not putting in danger the people that are under you when they are faced with a situation that they don't know the proper way to move their bodies or self-defense. The first thing that they're going to do is throw a punch, and they're going to be on a scuffle, and whatever subscription or membership that they're paying is basically for naught.
And what they really should do, and you're 100% right. You are now possibly endangering somebody with their belief that they now know how to defend themselves. And don't get me wrong, it's not like just because you know a certain type of martial arts that means that you can defend yourself against whatever the case may be. That's not true. However, when it's a literal made up martial art, or what something like the death touch, like you mentioned, what that is, it's not only is it fake, but you want to call it what it is. It's a magic trick. It's what it is. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's a magic trick, and that's not self-defense. That's not martial arts. That's not what martial arts was intended to be. That is somebody who's trying to make money off of bullshit. It's grifter. And that's what they are.
And do you happen to know any like examples of those two that people like being faked or some way that has been represented in some shape or manner. Because nowadays, since movies, I guess, have been rolling, I guess people, again, like I said, obviously what you're saying, the screen is quote unquote not real. Not that the people are not doing the fighting are not real themselves, so that's a very big difference. Everyone knows that Bruce Lee is real as they come, but obviously he was acting on his movies.
Well, and I think that's a lot of things. And I mean, even myself, even though I know you still get into it so much because it's some of it is so well done. But people always tend to forget that the fights in those martial arts movies, they're choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
They're all choreographed. So it's not real. It's probably not how a real fight would play out. I mean, maybe portions of it, sure. But that also being said, you can't take away anything from the people who are actually performing those stunts, especially when they're, legitimate martial artists. Like you said, Bruce Lee, you have Bruce Lee, you have Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen. These actors they basically grew up doing martial arts, and they got into acting because, hey, that's where the money is. They can utilize a lot of the stuff that they've learned, their expertise, their extremely well talented, physical abilities that they possess, and use it to entertain others and make a career out of it. And I definitely think that's awesome. But
and you mentioned
a lot of.
And you mentioned,
go ahead.
No, you mentioned Jackie Chan, and it's funny because it's just that entertainment in that during the research that I was doing, I didn't know, because obviously I hear Jackie Chan, I obviously think of the movies, but not too much of the person behind the camera,
Sure.
Well, he's in front of the camera, but you know what I mean.
Right. Not recording on
not
camera,
recording, right? Yeah, but basically off the camera, I guess I should have said.
There you go.
He actually has a background on the Chinese opera, I believe.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. I mean, he comes from entertainment, basically to entertainment, and he has a multitude of disciplines on different martial arts. But
sure.
I believe in interviews, like, it's the sort of thing that for marketing, you don't go to every single interview as said it outright, because obviously you want to sell an idea. And I guess that's the difference, but we'll touch upon that in a second, given the previous two statements that we made about fakes and all that. They are making a movie that obviously as a make-believe, but he himself has said that on a real fight, quote unquote, obviously he wouldn't be doing all of the things that you see on the screen, because again, you just said it,
sure.
It's a choreograph. But then again, it's just that. Obviously we watch movies for entertainment, but do you think that those things have also contributed to some people also falling prey to some of these grifters? Like, that make believe at the same time might be dangerous?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's because, how many times you watch like a martial arts movie or something like that, and after you finish watching it, you're like, yeah, I could do that.
You go and punch a wall and then you fracture it.
Yeah, exactly. Been there, done that. It's just I think you can get into that mindset of like, yeah, this is something that I could do. This is something I want to do. It's probably a little bit easier to fall into prey, to somebody that's promoting, BS like Grifter would. What about something like it's obviously it's a great movie. It's a classic movie, but something like The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, we know that Pat Morita was not a martial artist, and neither was Ralph Macchio. And we know that the martial arts in the movie was complete garbage as well, right? Wax on, wax off, paint the fence, all that bullshit. It was like, it was made for a really cool, movie, and like, oh, why is he making me do all these chores? And then, oh wow, I actually now know how to do martial arts because of that. Okay, cool. That's interesting concept for a movie, but let's be honest, it's bullshit. So, I mean, how many people would think that they're going to go out now and wax their car, and now they're going to be able to block punches from somebody coming up? But does that mean the movie was necessarily wrong? No, it's a movie.
Yeah.
So I think I think that's in a different light as something like your boy, Count Dante. But,
my boy. You know who else? I found out some stuff, and I'm like, man, if I heard this before, it's like, oh Jesus Lord. Have you heard of Ashida Kim?
That does ring a bell a little bit, but I'm not 100%.
Most likely you heard of the Deadly Hand. The one that could make himself invisible, levitate, had mind control, third proclaimed ninja, an author of the amorous adventures of Ashida Ken. That's basically a rom-com erotic fanfic.
So this is X-Men, right?
In one guy. So there's an individual that had a lot of like books that he sold, like teaching books for ninjutsu, like the way of the ninja, and he will record video, he moving quote unquote very fast and avoiding bullets and throwing sand in the eyes of people with arms. And this is the kind of thing that I really, if you're doing it for your own entertainment, hey, go wild, man.
Sure.
But if you're propagating that by selling those books as with no prior advertisement that this is for entertainment, not for like really, I guess that's on the eye of the beholder. Like, if you see the material and don't even consider that this is just someone's idea of running the creative uses, then sure, I guess you were, gullible enough, but then he's a grifter as well, like you use the term properly. And I believe he was a descendant of Count Dante, as far as his teachings and all that.
Love Count Dante.
Man, I've been obviously debating, like, if I go to train for a martial arts, and that's basically how the whole conversation started. Hey, let's just talk about martial arts and see what we can find and see what we can talk about. And this is the part that I try to pick it up with a grain of salt, because that's where people start talking about like different styles, different schools within the same quote unquote discipline or martial arts or what you want to call it. Like with the rise of MMA, I guess people have noticed that, like I mentioned earlier, that you just being adept to just one discipline is not effective enough. Obviously, you combining some of those concepts, like for example, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has become super popular because of how dominating it is for you to be able to trap someone, grapple them, and tackle them to the ground. In single engagement, that's obviously ideal. Maybe when you apply for self-defense in a quote-unquote cruise scenario, because you gotta make the distinction. Are we talking for the practice of a professional sport or like, an event, or for your personal care? That's obviously a line that has to be defined. I want to make that clear. The fakes that I've been describing are ones that have been stating these things that you can use in your day-to-day to defend yourself. When the conversation goes to real martial arts, then you got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Sambo, wrestling, the wrestling, the competitive wrestling, not the WWE.
Olympic wrestling.
Olympic wrestling, thank you. Judo, Muay Thai, you name it, are different practices that have been taking popularity because of MMA, of how people start combining the concept of one martial arts with the other, and the fruit of seeing you that live. And that was like the super idea, like, man, what's better, karate or taekwondo? And people have thrown them together, but then you see that they're applying concepts from other arts. It's like, oh, then if you're striking, but someone grabs you, and you don't know how to get out of the grapple, you're done. Or vice versa, in boxing, if you throw a knockout punch, that people love the knockout punches, they throw a punch and the guy is out. It's done. No need to grapple or dodge or whatever, So
yeah, exactly.
So I just been debating, like, what would be more practical, or just to pick one, the closest that is nearby, and start practicing a martial art. But in that search, I found all of our friends, Count Dante, George Dillman, Sheila Kim, and some others.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, the way I would always look at it is I would try to pick a style that most interests me, because it's obviously it's going to be something that you're going to devote, some time to. It's something that's physical, a lot of physical activity. So it's something that you don't want to, dread or not look forward to. So, to me, it would be like, I really enjoyed this particular style, and that would be kind of fun to learn. And that's kind of where I would lean towards. And then the other stuff would kind of come along with it. If it's done correctly, and the self defense, the discipline, the practice, that stuff all comes along with it. So that's kind of my thought process on it. But it's all dependent on you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's something that motivates you. Obviously, I would like to know a style that has grappling, but also has some striking to it. And you will say, well,
Sure.
Sambo it would be that got both striking in Sambo, and you also got grappling as well. But Sambo is not taught like everywhere; it's pretty rare. So,
Right.
what's the next best thing? Well, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is basically everywhere, and obviously there's not a whole lot of striking in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then you gotta mix that up with something. I just want to start and see where I can go from there. In searching for those, funny enough, again, this is something that I'm touching upon what I found. Not that I believe or that I personally are attached to any of these things that I found while doing a bit of research. Because anyone is up for debate. Some of the martial arts that people have said that are maybe not quote unquote as effective, more so as maybe a social activity or one of those things that we've been discussing so far, like creating character or discipline, would be something like Tai Chi. Like that's pretty,
Mm-hmm.
alleviate stress and anxiety and learn to control your body and your respiration. That is harder than it sounds, and but you're gonna go and tai chi someone when you're in a real fighting scenario. Maybe that's you gotta. I wouldn't consider it as something that I would practice just for the self defense. I guess part of it. Uh,
Right. Right.
Sumo is another one that even though it's a super popular sport, I guess the concepts you can apply to some extent, maybe the tackling or the weight shifting or some sort, and maybe you can use that to your advantage and run away. But you're not gonna ring out someone behind the 7-Eleven at your local, gas station or something.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
And the other ones that I found that obviously is highly debated are Kung Fu, Capoeira, and Wing Chun. And I'm like, I can see why people say some of those. For example, Wing Chun, people say that there's a lot of consecutive striking, and that can serve to, for example, disorient someone. But those don't have the same impact, or I don't want to call it lethality or something like that, but like to stray someone away. I guess if you're fighting someone that is not practiced in martial arts, that's usually the case with like a drunkard or someone that is gonna mob you. Most likely they're not have a training and you might come on top. But then obviously you translate that to other aspects, then it might not be as effective, even though within the same martial arts there are concepts for maybe eye gouging or kicking the knees, and obviously in competitive sports that's not allowed.
Sure.
That's maybe why we don't see a lot of Wing Chun in MMA.
Well, yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, MMA seems to be focused quite a bit, a lot on grappling techniques and takedown techniques, as far as forcing their opponent to surrender or give up or whatever the term is. You don't see. I mean, you see some striking in MMA, but usually it's more the grappling seems to be the most effective for their sport. And I think that's kind of why I tend to gravitate more towards boxing. I don't really care for the MMA too much, because I'm more of a person that enjoys the non-grappling, the striking, the blocking, the punching, the kicking. Obviously, boxing you don't kick, but the strategy behind that without the grappling, to me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the grappling is ineffective or it's not effective or that it's bad or it's not cool. That's just not my style. It's not a style that attracts me.
As an spectator, it's not something that you really want to.
It's not, and it wouldn't be something that I would want to practice either, because it doesn't really interest me too much. So something like a Wing Chun would definitely interest me, obviously because of the popularity of that's been brought about with stuff like Ip Man, obviously Bruce Lee and Donnie Yen, and whatnot. But I like, and Wing Chun is definitely it's also a very entertaining type style to watch. It's just on how their movements are so fluid. But yeah, it's I kind of gravitate more towards that. Obviously, I studied karate. My Isshin-ryu was from Okinawa, Japan.
Okay.
It was more of a straightforward, linear type
I can see
martial arts.
I can see that being your style.
Hey, yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah, we're and as opposed to like Taekwondo, which is more of a circular type style. The style that I studied focused more on the straightforward attacks, straightforward defense, versus, I don't want to necessarily say spectacle of Taekwondo. I'm not knocking Taekwondo. It's an awesome style, but it can tend to be a little showy. Does that make it bad? No, of course not. But it's definitely a more circular, acrobatic type style than what I studied when I was younger. But yeah, it's to me it's just all about taste. It's all about taste. And I was gonna say, and I don't think you can really go wrong as long as it's a legitimate school, where you can actually take a look at the history and make sure that you're getting into, you're not going to Count Dante's school.
Yeah. I mean, for example, capoeira, people say that it might not be effective because they're looking at the dancing and the music aspect of it. And to be quite honest with you, I saw like a few videos of people not only practicing it, but giving a more detailed explanation on it. And it is more so on the matter that the teacher that they're interviewing for the class, he said, no, like, nah, you're not gonna be dancing on the street, like you're not gonna be doing they call it like the game. Is the term that they use when they're doing that shuffling, that they're moving their feet back and forth. For everyone that's played Tekken, I guess, Eddie, your Eddie characters, yes, or whatever, they're moving around. Obviously, you would do like your stances, like your middle ground, kind of a deal, center yourself and line yourself so your body mass is shifts accordingly with what's going on. They can do striking as well as some other arts like kicking and striking, and even things that other martial arts cannot do because of the way that they shift themselves around both in one feet or on the ground to come on top. So the person was teaching how to incorporate the movement from capoeira in a real world scenario. Like if someone were, for example, to throw a punch, that would be the most likely scenario, how to deflect it, and the way that they position their hands and how they move forward and make it so that they trip the person. They're defending themselves and leaving the person with no room to retaliate, and they making a run for it. Like those are practical applications within the martial art. And that's why I made the, I guess, disclaimer when I was mentioning it. It's not that I believe in any of things. It's the things that I found that people usually discuss on the forums, on videos, or make essays about it. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's like you say, picking something that is interesting and you can move along with it. But again, doing that research, I found all of these fakes and people that obviously have been exposed during the years. And something that I don't know if you heard about it or it was in your purview, is someone called Xiaodong. Have you heard of him?
I don't know if I've heard it. No, I don't. I haven't. No.
He's a Chinese. I haven't been quite private because there's a lot of things going on with him. He was a radio broadcaster that also practiced martial arts, and his motto originally was proving that some of these martial arts that have been practicing in China were fakes from the standpoint that not that they're not applicable within their, like I mentioned earlier, social activities or effectiveness in a self-defense scenario. It's like, hey, the world is evolving to an extent that martial arts is the future. You just being practicing the martial art because of traditions or things. He was basically training a jab of the Chinese traditional system for a goals of some of the kung fu and Wing Chun and other arts that they practice.
Yeah.
And he started fighting kung fu masters, and he was beating them with the training that he'd done in MMA. And he defeated a kung fu master in less than a minute. He bested a Wing Chun master in less than 2 minutes, all recorded, and you can search the videos and see it. And he's just applying like basic concepts of obviously grappling, striking, taking down, mounting. And it's like there's kind of he wanted to bring to the public that the recognition that there are things that are just for show versus being taught as this is the real deal, and if you know this art, you're gonna be untouchable, and that's kind of going to hubris. And by doing that, the Chinese Communist Party started lowering his credit score, so he was not able to afford the expenses of living or even travel within his own country. And because he was challenging all of these Wang Chun Kung Fu masters across the land, it was obviously deteriorating for him to be able to go to these matches and be able to prove that he was able to do it. But still, he came on top, even with all the things that the government was doing to detract from he being able to prove them wrong. And it came to a point that he became to be harassed, assaulted, and when he was attending to the events, he was forced to paint himself in a way that it was like clown makeup that they use for Chinese. And it's like, wow, I found out about this guy through my research, and it's like, man, he's really trying to prove them wrong, and they're doing everything in their power to do so, and he keeps still going on top. And one of his matches was quote unquote on live television. Obviously, I don't know the context of the show that they were on, but he was fighting a Wing Chun master. Round by round, he was knocking the guy down, Xiaodong, and at the end, they declared a draw or something like that. And it's like, how can you tell me that it was a draw? He was clearly beating the other guy.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Off air, I'd like you to send me some of the information. That sounds interesting.
I'll do.
To look up and to read about, and part of me, but there's also another part of me that it's like, well, I'm not sure what he was actually, what was the end game? What was he really trying to do? Okay.
Maybe I
you know
was
what
not,
I mean?
Maybe I was not able to summarize the concept properly. Basically, you got all of these martial arts that claim that they're unbeatable, like going to these pedestals that they're untouchable, they cannot touch it, and he wanted to prove them wrong. That hey, you're wrong.
And that I could definitely respect. You know me, if somebody says they're unbeatable, then I love for somebody to prove them wrong. As long as he doesn't turn around and say, well, you see now my style is unbeatable, because there's always going to be something that's going to be able to beat another style, whether it's style or person. Let's be honest. The style is only as good as how the person is utilizing it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that these people weren't adept at their styles or not masters or whatever, but what I'm saying, one person, just because I could go and train, in a certain style, I'll never be as good as somebody else that might have been training in the style for either multiple reasons, and some of it might actually just come down to just natural ability, I could there were people in my class. There was this one kid in my class who he could kick like straight up, do a perfect split and kick straight up. I could never do that. I was not that flexible. For whatever reason. Does that mean he was better than me or not? No, it's just different, so everybody's different. So, but that's definitely interesting. I'd like to do a little bit of research and look into that.
I'll definitely send you. I'll definitely send you.
Cool.
Some of that. And on your side, have you like any example of maybe popular media or something that have come, not necessarily a reason, but that we've seen that it turned out something that is fake and it was made up or something in the like?
Well, I mean, if there's out of the different examples, I brought up the Karate Kid, obviously, and then there's two other examples that I'd like to bring up. One, obviously, it's the well-known Frank Dukes from Bloodsport. Yeah, and it's a shame because it was a fantastic movie. It was a great movie, but obviously we know at this point that most of the stuff that that movie was based around, and most of the stuff that ever came out of that guy's mouth was complete and utter bullshit. So, but now I don't know if I'd necessarily classify him as a grifter because, well, I mean, I guess you could say he made profits off of the movies and stuff like that. But
I guess at this point in time, most people know, but for those that don't know who Frank Duke is, can you say talk a bit more about him?
Yeah, so, I mean, supposedly he was in the military, and I forget what he was. Well, he was from Canada originally, right? And then I think he relocated to the U.S., and he was in the Marine Corps, and I guess he was awarded a Medal of Honor and all this other bullshit, right? So, but supposedly, he knew, he held black belts in Taekwondo and a bunch of other, martial arts, and he was supposed to be like some uber martial arts guy, and he had alleged a lot of different things. One of the biggest one, and this is what the movie surrounds, that he alleged that he was in this martial arts competition called the Kumite.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was supposedly in the 70s, and it was some single elimination tournament that's supposed to be in secret, only every couple years or whatever. And obviously he goes on that he won a tournament, he beat all these people, and then he had these ridiculous claims like he had the fastest knockout punch at 0.12 seconds. He had the most consecutive knockouts. And then, they basically ended up making a film called Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme based around the bullshit. to the point where they even had like these claims at the end of the movie with the fastest knockout punch and most consecutive knockouts and all this stuff. And it's a shame because the movie was great. And obviously Van Damme was, a legitimate martial artist. But, as I guess as time, goes on, all these different claims of his, especially revolving around the Kumite, and his martial arts knowledge were starting to get questioned.
They were exposed by some media, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. People, were even questioning a lot of the stuff that he claimed in his military service
and the Kumite itself, because apparently there's only 2 people that have attended the Kumite at this point in time, and I believe he said that it was like 60 consecutive.
Yeah, it was like 60 consecutive or something like that. And I think it was to the point where the numbers, if you actually calculated out the numbers of how many people would have to be attending at that damn tournament for it to be single elimination and all the knockouts, it was like an insane amount of people that would have had to been in this tournament. And it was like, wait a second, this doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, this guy's a little bit crazy. I think he's still alive, isn't he?
Well, Jacob Dance, yes. Frank Dukes, I'm not quite sure.
Dukes, I think he is. He's probably still spouting out bullshit.
I mean, some people are lucky or are able to think themselves way through a situation and get the most out of it. And something that I want to clarify, because it's been on the back of my mind since I said it, you presented a perfect example of, for example, that movie, Bloodsport. I used to watch that movie every time that I was on TV. I would sit down and see it, and all the punching and the flexing that didn't make sense, that Jean-Claude Van Damme would punch someone and he would be flexing his arm like, and retain it, and 10 seconds later, Yeah, it's like, if it was a real fight, it's like the other guy would have gone up and punched him and killed him like 1,000 times, But maybe that raised the I don't want awareness, or I guess brought attention to martial arts in point in time. But when I mentioned earlier the thing about Jackie Chan, for example, I said it in general for martial arts, but I just so happened to mention with the conversation in the Jackie Chan movies. I want to explain that, yeah, he might have said that maybe on an interview that he would not practice like what he does in the movies in real life, but what he had been able to accomplish through his movies, to be able to brought like many people into the martial arts and create that like that discipline and control over themselves and all that. I think that's a positive effect. Like I don't want to that
100%.
To that be tarnished by the comment that also you got examples of, I guess, bloodsport that might not be accurate and by me actually detrimental to someone that is looking to practice it and might not have the critical thinking or the rationale to be able to approach these things with a sound mind, unfortunately.
Well, most definitely. And one of the things that I really, I try to pay attention to when it comes to movies particularly is that I tend to enjoy a martial arts movie specifically, but any movie that contains martial arts, when the actor actually knows, like you said with Jackie Chan, would he be doing the same stuff that he was in his choreographed movie? Probably not. And, he said that, but he's still a legitimate martial artist. He's a real martial artist. And a lot of the stuff he's doing in the movie is without wire work, without CGI work. He's doing, his own stunts and this and this and that. Now obviously there's a lot of, martial arts movies, especially from Hong Kong, where they do a lot of the real flamboyant stuff where there's a lot of wire work. I tend to really want to know that the person, is a legitimate martial artist. To me, it makes it more, I don't want to say more authentic. It's still choreographed, but it makes it more fun to me because, I know that these people, they're not, they didn't get into the movie to get into the movie. They got into the movie because they were a martial artist, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of one of the reasons why with the other person that I wanted to bring up, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this, is David Carradine.
Oh man, the last name rings a bell, but it's not on the top of my mind.
So he was the one who he was in the series, the series called Kung Fu.
Oh yeah. I remember.
Yes, and he was and that was originally supposed to be Bruce Lee.
Mm-hmm.
But Carradine got it, and he didn't know jack shit about Kung Fu. They hired him, or mainly because obviously he's white.
Before you go, my bad. Before you go, I haven't. I said yeah, but to make sure, he's the one that appeals on Kill Bill, right?
Yep, he's Bill in Kill Bill.
Yes, Bill in Kill Bill. The spoilers, but okay, yeah.
Yes, if you guys haven't seen Kill Bill, then,
that's a late spoiler warning.
Whoops, a little late on.
Yeah, but I wanted to make sure that I had the correct face in my mind. Okay,
sorry, and if you haven't seen it by now, I'm sorry. That's on you. That's on.
Yeah, so go on. Sorry.
So he was a dancer, and that's one of the reasons that he was attracted to the film crew because he was a dancer, so he could do a lot of the movements and whatnot. And obviously, he was supposed to be, like, I think, half Chinese. Half white. I mean, because the name of the damn show was Kung Fu, so it's like, wait a second, he ain't Chinese. What's going on? He's supposed to be half Chinese, half white. Blah blah blah. But it's it kind of irks me because you're basically recruiting somebody or casting somebody that doesn't know Kung Fu in a show called Kung Fu. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And I understand that. Later on, he actually did become a martial artist, and he actually did train and learn Kung Fu. But again, to me, it's just like, wouldn't you want to have, and I think this is still more of the times, I don't think it would happen as much today, even though it probably still does. It can and will. But I think it was more the times. Oh, we don't really need to have somebody that knows how to completely kung fu, right? And he doesn't even really need to be Chinese, right? Let's just, that's good. And it ended up being a popular show.
Ah, man, that's a tough. If you want to know my thoughts, that's a tough one because I guess he was able to sell the show. And I guess for many people, that would be a symptom of whitewashing. I kind of
it definitely was.
So it's like, like, I guess over time he earned the role, but if originally someone were to be cast into the role, obviously you don't want to assume or typecast someone from Asian descent because you're making the association of martial arts with Asians, and that would be, I guess, a stereotype that might be wrong as well. But at least get someone in there that already got the experience, and you at least as a enjoyer of the medium will have been sold the experience, not only what you were saying on the screen, but knowing that the person with confidence could say that they actually knew what we're doing when they were fighting or whatever, doing the choreograph.
Yeah, most definitely. To me, that makes, to me, it makes it, I would, I mean, it's probably, a little bit, I can't think of the word, but it counters the fact that I know it's still just a movie. It's still a film. It's still a TV show or whatever. I mean, it's not like, I'm sitting there watching Dragon Ball or playing Street Fighter and like, this is ridiculous because nobody can actually throw a fireball out of their hand. And until you find that school, I want you to tell me which school that is because I would like to learn that.
All of
us. But to me, I think it brings more authenticity to it because somebody who actually legitimately knows the art can make it look a lot more realistic, even though it's choreographed.
So it's funny because you told me that he became then a practitioner of martial arts, no?
He did, yes.
So I got you an example of something on the inverse. Someone that was a practitioner of martial arts made movies, and then I hate to say, but they kind of went backwards in the practice of martial arts.
You're talking about Carradine?
Yeah, someone. I'm talking about someone else. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you an example of someone that I guess did it the opposite way, and I might get in danger here, a lot of flag, and I'm gonna hide away in a bunker or something.
So which way? So this person went from martial arts to movies, or movies and then learned martial arts.
He practiced martial arts, and then he started making movies, and by all accounts, it was legit. But as time went on, I guess hubris got hit to his head, and I guess it became his downfall. It might be one of the most hated individuals in Hollywood. And
I'm gonna go with Steven Seagal.
You're correct, my friend.
Yes. Yes.
And this is the part because when I was doing my research, like everything, I found the Steven Seagal fandom. And man, oh man, I might, like that Simpsons meme, I'm in danger! There's people that are very passionate about him, but here we go. So, for those that don't know, Steven Seagal was a very popular action movie or martial arts movie star during the late 1980s, early 1990s. Some of his most popular movies, Mark for Dead, Under Siege, Above the Law, and so on and so forth. Like, were some of the first movies that come to mind that you would see someone doing the moves that he was doing. Like, he's a practitioner of Aikido and a black belt in Aikido, by all accounts. You will see him, like, twisting arms, breaking legs, fighting people with cue balls and whatnot. And obviously it was all something that he became, like, he had the charisma and the moves that he was able to sell that persona on those movies. And his rise to fame was, well, meteoric at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start digging into his past, it's one of those things that you start to question them. Has anything that he's done is true? Because he moved to Japan. He started practicing Aikido under the person that became his wife. And by all accounts, he was quote unquote the first person to teach American to teach or Western to teach like have a dojo in Japan. But by all accounts, it was the dojo of his spouse that belonged to the father of the spouse. So you got all that going on. I didn't find he saying this. Obviously, this is all that is presented on the internet. And again, take it with a grain of salt. But he has said that he claims to have trained under Morihei Ueshiba, apparently the creator of the art of Aikido. Well, a master, because it's kind of okay. Apparently, the master died quite a few years before he actually moved to Japan, and that start raising some eyebrows. Like, wait, but you started to get like those conflicting anecdotals or evidence going on. Then, if you start getting into the livelihood of the person, and not that I want to attack the person, but it's the kind of individual that has developed a reputation that every single person that have worked with him has something to say about him and not positive. Like for example, John Leguizamo, he had an interview and he said that I think he made 2 movies with Steven Seagal. I believe one of them being The Executive Decision. They were talking about something, and Steven Seagal approached Leguizamo, and he was saying like, "Hey, whatever I say is law, and I'm like in control or whatever." And Leguizamo, being apparently the kind of individual that he is, he started laughing at him because he thought it was a joke. But Steven Seagal was all serious about it, and he do an Aikido move and punch him through a wall, and he was like, "Why?" In another interview, Steven Seagal was asked like, "Hey, who do you would like to work with, like another martial artist that is popular, or you would like bring to a fight that you can back you up?" And it's like, I forgot I didn't write it down. I forgot the name of the interviewee, but it's a very popular one. If you like type on Google like interview Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, he's actually if he knew who Steven Seagal was, and he was like, "No, I heard of him, but I don't know who he is." And he was asked like, "Do you think that Jean-Claude Van Damme is like a champion or legit?" And he's like, "I don't know. He being a champion. Those are rumors." The host was like, "What happened here? Like humble much?"
Yeah, exactly.
And he developed this another popular one during the movie Never Say Never Again. He was training Sean Connery as a martial art, and he during the filming he fractured or broke the wrist for Sean Connery, and he's like, "Okay." Like, why? Why do you go all the way? And again, the stunt doubles say that he's kind of a rough during the scenes, and obviously people that defend Steven Seagal will say that obviously that's people that are looking to slander him and throw his reputation to the ground. And to that I say, why would someone develop a reputation through numerous projects if it happened one time? That you can raise like some suspicion that it might be hearsay, but you hear it once, twice, thrice, 4, and they like. So it kind of started evolving into this individual that rose to fame very fast, a practitioner of martial arts, and then from there I started falling down with multiple accusations of, I guess, sexual harassment and all that, and I guess I won't get into all that terrible stuff. But as a character, obviously, as an actor, what you sell is your persona, your image, and your image, I guess, not being clean. And hey, no one's image is perfectly clean, but at least don't be so uncharismatic or more humble. Like if you're practicing a martial art, I guess as Aikido that has principles on, like control and movement, and if you are a true master of the art, you wouldn't be hurting these people while you're doing a shooting of a choreograph or hurting their stunt doubles or other actors. And recently he's become the sort of actor that has come from making famous movies to direct-to-video movies, and not to detract to the direct-to-video movies, but usually those movies are not the box office hits that are expecting to be on the millions of dollars or be super popular kind of a deal.
Yeah, no doubt.
And for me, when you say the actor from Kung Fu, And I say, well, he went from not being a martial artist to becoming one through his acting
Yes.
career. I got an example of one that came from being a martial artist by all accounts. By making
Yes.
I've been sure to say it at least 3 times by all accounts. And going and developing into this persona that, when you see some of his most recent work, like doing, proper, like, mat exhibitions, I guess you would call it. Obviously you can.
Some of those videos are funny as hell, though.
Yeah, you can obviously. I mean, I know he's an old man now, but you're realizing that obviously you don't see the same fluidity of movement of him, and I don't want to shame anyone because of their body type or whatever, because that's not what we're here for. But I guess you gotta come to some degree of realization that there's something going on there.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you can see in some of the videos where and I guess it would bring about the questions as whether he was legitimate or not, and you can probably have that argument over and over again. But at the very least, I think probably everybody could agree on some of those videos that you see. He wasn't even trying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Obviously, you're making an observation, and how realistic is it? Like, you're
Right.
selling the idea, and I'm not even into the consideration, because I've seen a few videos of people that have started practicing Aikido, and they've been disheartened with the martial art. And that's, again, no, I'm not saying that Aikido is fake. Let me clarify.
Right.
It's just that they have found that it's not maybe as effective in a self-defense or fighting scenario, because you're looking for, like, joint manipulation, because no matter how big or tough the other person is, their joints are still susceptible, and that's a concept that everyone, I guess, can agree upon, at least.
Sure.
But they found that you don't see many people doing Aikido in MMA, for example, and I guess it goes into that competitive nature, and by all accounts of being done as maybe social martial arts or for other purposes or benefits, it's a legit martial art for those benefits. But I guess when you try to sell it for, hey, I am untouchable, like Steven Seagal,
Right.
then are you so high out in a cloud that he predisposed himself into believing that, and he has been telling himself that for all this time, that he really believes that he cannot be like touched, like he's on that hubris, and that kind of goes into my previous point from Xiaodong, that there are people that are in that same mindset, that they have self-suggested themselves practicing these martial arts, that they're detached from some realities, that you gotta, I guess, be enough self-aware that those that follow you and surround you, hey, I'm doing this as a recreational art, or for discipline, for guidance, for gaining confidence within myself, but be sure to make the disclaimer, this might not be applicable in all scenarios. So teaching that self-defense out of itself, that's what I trying to bring into the conversation, that people don't let yourself be told by someone everything that they say is law, and there is no questioning about it. Like, be critical about it. Hey, be critical even about us bringing all these topics to the table and everything that we're talking about, because don't let yourself fall prey to people that are wanting to exploit you.
And that's exactly right. I mean, it's what's the adage, like, and go back to your Steven Seagal scenario, is what is, like, if you believe a lie long enough it becomes true, or something like that.
Make it until you believe it, or fake it until you make it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I was just actually trying to look up the quote here. Tell a lie often enough, and it becomes the truth. I mean,
yeah.
But I do think that these people, like somebody like that, they might, and not to say that he wasn't a legitimate martial artist, but to stop the stuff about
in his early days,
untouchable.
In his early days, you seen him move and in his exhibitions. I would, to some extent, say that definitely he was into the art. Nowadays, I would definitely question it.
Well, yeah, definitely. You can tell it's not something that he does on a regular basis at this point. But I mean,
and I have to say it because it was part of my research, and people like to argue in one way or another, and I guess there were witnesses whether they were paid off or if all live. There's an account of someone submitting Steven Seagal
Sure.
because he said that he was able to escape from any chokehold.
Sure.
And apparently he was submitted to the point that he passed out, and apparently he had to go on his pants. And that's the part of the story that you're like, well, either they're exaggerating, if there were actually witnesses.
Right, right.
So,
well, hey, dude. I mean, that still holds true, though, right? I mean, that passing out is a way to get out of the chokehold.
I mean, when you put it that way, no. But the thing that I want to clarify that obviously none of us were there, and these are anecdotals. That obviously there was no recording of the event. So, but there were people within the scene that wanted to challenge Steven Seagal to an open competition, and he never showed up. So, what does that say? Like, why do you garner so much hate? Like you don't see people, well, maybe for other reasons, but for example, I guess the example of Jackie Chan, you don't see people like making quite literally a group of 12 individuals, going after him to fight him openly, you know. You don't see that many people. I guess Jackie Chan has done other things that people may question, but I won't get into that here. I guess whatever his affiliation with the Chinese party and all that, that's a different story.
Sure.
But it's like, why create that reputation? I know that you will hate him more, and if you didn't know this, I guess you will know it now. He had a TV show. I don't know if you've seen Steven Seagal, like Lawman.
Oh, yeah. I heard about it. I obviously never.
No, I never saw it, but during my research, I found it, and it's like, with a tank, he dropped down a fence because there was someone that was accused of, I guess, cockfighting.
Okay.
And it's like, because the person have a lot of roosters and whatnot in his backyard, and he was accused of that, and he needed to use a tank to not only damage his fence, but in the process, by all accounts, he killed a puppy. And if you didn't hate him, now you hate him more.
Oh, well, now, I mean, I already didn't like him. Now I really hate him. I mean, come on, man. What the hell did the dog do to you?
No, man. And he's... I don't want to devolve the conversation just in Steven Seagal, but it's the sample of both the presenting the benefits and, I guess, detriments of martial arts, and how they have been presented in media through the years, and how individuals with the power, because I guess the martial arts is something that comes along with it, to you being able to defend yourself and being able to have self-confidence is having power, like becoming a monster, but it's the sort of monster that you want to become, I guess.
Well, and that's just it, and also it's the egotistical, BS as well. That it's like just because you know martial arts or whatever the case is, it doesn't necessarily make you better, stronger, or whatever than anybody else. I mean, it's and like you mentioned before, as far as the people getting challenged. Most of the time, people get challenged because they're talking smack. The people aren't going to just go and start challenging people who aren't, and for the most part, who aren't talking, big, like, oh, nobody could beat me. Well, no, okay, you say that. Now someone's going to beat you because everybody in the brothers is going to try to be beating you. And I know that, I like Bruce Lee wasn't a talker like that. And I know a lot of people always like to challenge him because everybody thought that, he was so good, he was the best, and blah, blah, blah. And so, you're always going to have the people who want to try to beat the best. But, I think for the most part, it's the people who are boasting the most that are, and usually the boasters are usually the ones that aren't near as good as the ones who don't say shit, right?
Funny enough, oh man, everyone I guess has heard of Conor McGregor, no?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Man, I didn't watch like MMA like at all, but I gotta admit that I saw one or two matches from him when he was kind of starting up. It's just that when he was starting up, he seemed like more of a humble individual.
Yeah.
But as time went on, it basically became that whole trash talking with Dana White in the podium, and both wrestlers in both sides, and he talking smack to the microphone on and on and on, and because he sold tickets. I guess that was
well,
let go.
that's a whole different kind of conversation. Yeah, because he's promoting. You're promoting a event that the more people that attend and purchase the event, the more money he's going to make. So yeah, I think that's definitely, I think that you could say could be like a fabricated persona. Not necessarily saying that it is or it's not, but I think
man, that's the thing. Like, how much of a fabricated persona? I guess like this going away a bit more away from the whole fake martial arts and all that, but within the conversation of smack talking, like, he would talk smack, and obviously he would put the weight behind his word to some point. Because until, if I'm not mistaken, it was Nate Diaz that beat him up.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Yeah, so it's like he was talking smack until someone actually beat him. Whether it was the money and the lifestyle that he started kind of to degrade from his original persona, or that was something that was already there, and by gaining this fame and confidence and attention, he needed to hog the attention. It developed to something that was not as, I guess, quote unquote, pure, but maybe it was always there and we didn't see it until all these things started happening.
Yeah, quite possibly. It's definitely interesting. I mean, when you're talking about, the combat sports, it definitely, I think, falls into a little bit of a different category when there's multiple people involved that are making money off of, a persona, a personality, or the talent, and not to necessarily say that somebody can't be legitimately like that. I'm sure that's the case for quite a few, but I think a lot of times as well, it's not necessarily an act, but it's they're putting on a show to try to garner more attention. And sometimes, I mean, as being the people that everybody hates, it's almost perfect in a sense that people want to tune in just to see you lose.
And that's something that comes along with wrestling, like the WWE, like wrestling.
Right.
That everyone likes a villain because they are talking smack and they come every day to see them fall.
Yeah.
And I think I gotta give a few shout outs before we kind of go our way, but during my research, some of the people that I kind of influenced most of my seeing what they have, like they presented and me doing some other research on the site, were Super iPad Wolf. For those that know, like his channel, he's a fan of wrestling, and he also discussed on a video a few years ago this very same topic of fake martial arts and many others like 32 martial art journey. There are multiple channels that kind of delve a bit more deeper than the practitioners of martial arts for multiple years. This more so came from my interest of actually getting into a martial arts, but doing the research, all of these videos start popping up, and obviously I go down the rabbit hole, and oh boy.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
And we're here. But
it's popularized now, obviously.
And what I was going through with Super iPad, which, for example, he being a fan of wrestling, he had also a video of wrestling, and he goes into he does a way better job of explaining the nuances of wrestling and being a fan of it, and how the Japanese wrestling is super famous as well for that, like having those turncoats. They've got this team that they're both friends, but in the championship match, the one betrays the other, and then everyone hates that guy. But it's so more so that they sell the persona so well that they're doing a fantastic job within inside the ring and outside the ring.
and you got to give those guys a lot of credit, because you can sit here and say, well, it's fake, and it's fake
don't say that too loud, dude.
Well, no, exactly. But that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it's fake in the sense that it's pre-written, it's choreographed, it's written to know who's going to win and who's going to lose based on the storyline that's going on. But you can't deny that what these people are doing in the ring isn't, it takes incredible athletic ability to be able to do a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. That fall from the third rope and hitting the table, that how fake is that? You're still hitting a table. You're still jumping from the third rope,
Sure, there's certain moves that they that aren't, real because they, quite possibly would break the person's neck. But, it's still, it's not like there's no risk involved. If they're not precise in the way they're doing a lot of these moves, someone could legitimately get extremely hurt, and people have. So, it's fake in the sense that it's not a real match as far as a real sport where someone's trying to win and someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. Where, that is not predetermined. And here it's predetermined, but that doesn't make it any less entertaining or any less, enjoyable.
No, for sure. And I guess that they're selling that experience, but there are people that are obviously, like you said, are athletes and are performing on the ring.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, don't tell people that's fake, because obviously you're getting, I work with a guy, super nice guy. I haven't been in touch with him in a while. I should reach out to him. Obviously I won't say names, but yeah, it's someone that worked with me in my previous place, and he actually practiced wrestling. He told me of all the injuries that he had on his neck, on his spine, on his hands, on his wrist.
They get beat up. Yeah.
All of that is real. Like, there's no one that can tell you that that's not real.
No, they get beat up. Their bodies are toast, and they're doing it for the majority of the year as well. Yeah, they get beat up really bad, and obviously there's, concussions and things of that nature that come along with it. And, obviously they're probably utilizing certain things to try to get them back in the ring every day. Similar to like football players, you have to, do stuff with their bodies to try to get them back in the, game next week because they get beat up so bad. And it's not I know, I'm sure a lot of them have, a lot of fun, and it's very enjoyable and they love doing it, but it's, people think it's luxurious life. It's not, they're getting their asses kicked every day.
Hey, but if you practice the Shidaken self-healing method, you can restore your chi and your health very quickly.
It's what I do every day, baby.
do you have anything else to bring? Because we went from fake martial arts to MMA to movies to artists to wrestling. I guess you have something else there.
No, we covered it all, I think. No, I mean, that was a cool topic. It was a good conversation. So. I definitely will, urge the people to, if you haven't figured out by now, do some research. Make sure that, if you're going to go ahead and get into something like the martial arts, that it's legitimate and also you're doing it for the right reasons, Or
even if not from the sense of, let me put it this way. It might sound like I'm backtracking anything that I said, but what I want to clarify, when I mentioned the part about some martial arts, quote unquote, not being as effective, you can go ahead and practice Tai Chi and whatever martial art. Like, don't go with the most popular and go practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or boxing or whatever. Like,
practice whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's just not, as long as it's not just, snake oil bullshit like your boy Count Dante.
Oh, yeah, the no touch.
Right.
Hey, but yeah, that was a fantastic conversation, and hey, most likely we infuriated a lot of people, or maybe we'd convince some people to just start. Hey, I'm trying to convince myself to just start to do something, and I guess I will be reporting on that eventually.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm curious to see if you do start something and how it goes and what you decided and whatnot. It's been such a long time since I've done any martial arts. It'd be something that I'd be interested in hearing about. Whether or not I'd be think about getting back into it or not. I don't know. It's crossed my mind on a couple occasions, but
just do it.
That couch looks really comfy, man. I'm telling you.
Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. I guess we'll catch you in the next one.
Enjoy, everybody.